Hello, OT friends, and welcome to the Uncommon OT series. I'm Patricia Modis, and I'm your host, a Filipino-American, native New Yorker, currently based in Los Angeles, bulldog mama, and an uncommon occupational therapist myself for the past 22 years. On this podcast, you will hear me proudly feature the unique careers of occupational therapy practitioners working in non-traditional and role-emerging practice areas, settings where OT is uncommon. I invite you to receive a dose of OT inspiration, to learn, to think outside of the box, and to be energized and motivated to follow in these unconventional paths. Happy listening! Before we begin this episode, I want to extend a special thanks to Picmonic, our sponsor. If you are an OT or OTA student looking for an excellent learning resource and study aid, Picmonic might be for you. Whether you're studying for your classes or getting ready for the NBCOT exam, it is a visual mnemonic learning tool that has been research proven to increase retention and help students ace their exams. It uses audio-visual learning and intelligence-based repetition algorithms to help with long-term retention while studying. If you're interested in trying it for yourself, sign up today using the link in the show notes or using the code TRANSITIONSOT to score a discount of 20% off your Picmonic membership.
Welcome back, OT friends. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you to our guest of honor, Nikki Latimer. Nikki is a recent graduate from Boston University and is currently studying for the NBCOT exam. Nikki's doctoral capstone project focused on yoga and Parkinson's disease. So welcome to the podcast, Nikki.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you for having me on here. I'm super excited.
Thank you for coming on. I am thrilled to dive deeper into your capstone project. You know, you and I have this mutual passion for yoga, and I love that you're able to explore this very non-traditional way of offering our service and combining it with your passion at such an early point in your OT career. So I'm thrilled to have you on. As usual, before we dive into all of that, I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe some of your favorite occupations.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Orange County, California. Some of my favorite occupations are, as you mentioned already, practicing yoga and also teaching yoga. I've been a swim teacher for a number of years, and I also love anything and everything outdoor related. So hiking, camping, surfing, scuba diving, rock climbing, all those types of things. And I'm also a really big baseball fan.
Go Dodgers!
But that's okay. I'm not a Dodgers fan. We're happy about the Dodgers then this year for sure. Also a Red Sox fan since I did shoot Boston too. But yeah. And I first learned about OT in high school through volunteering in a adapted kinesiology program in the community. And so I knew pretty early on that I wanted to pursue occupational therapy. And so from Southern California, I went to undergrad at Iowa State University and got my degree in Kinesiology and Health with a minor in psychology. And then from Iowa State, I pursued my doctorate in occupational therapy at Boston University. And now I'm finally back home in Southern California, as you mentioned, studying for the NBCOT and hoping to get a job up here in North County, San Diego.
Well, congratulations on your accomplishments thus far. I couldn't help but get stuck on just like kinesiology and psychology. I mean, what a blend. And it almost, makes perfect sense that you end up in occupational therapy.
Yes, I totally agree. And I feel that way too about even the volunteer opportunities that I've had. It just seems like everything has pointed me in the direction of OT pretty seamlessly. So I'm really lucky that I've gotten the experiences I've had.
You're ready. You're ready to go out there and do your OT things. Can you share with us a little bit about what motivated you to contribute to the podcast?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that motivated me to come on this podcast. I know we talked about this earlier, but occupational therapy can be very hard to define because there's so many buckets that we can be in. And I think that actually initially drew me to OT because our scope is so wide. We have the opportunity to help so many people with so many different areas in their life to help them engage in whatever their meaningful passions are. And so that variety really inspires me to stay creative in an OT setting. And I'm excited to contribute to this podcast platform because not only do you give OTs ideas and maybe inspire occupational therapists, but also you're expanding everybody's understanding of what occupational therapy can be for people, which is really exciting.
Thank you for that, including myself, right? With every episode, I think to myself, oh my goodness, this is amazing.
It is.
Yeah. So focusing in or honing in more on yoga and Parkinson's disease, can you tell us a little bit more about your capstone project and this uncommon OT capstone project? I guess, right?
Yes. And it is more of an uncommon practice area. So I recently finished my doctoral capstone project. So it was over 16 weeks. And I've always had a passion for yoga and teaching yoga. And I've also always had a passion for working with people with Parkinson's disease. And I hadn't ever really considered combining those until my capstone project came to be. And as I was beginning my literature search, I found overwhelming evidence of the benefits, physical and mental emotional benefits for people with Parkinson's that are practicing yoga. Even I, as a yoga teacher, could not find the practical guidance on what Parkinson's can do to start their yoga practice. So, like what type of yoga or how long or, does it have to be standing? Can it be done in a chair? And a lot of questions I had as a yoga instructor and as a student. And so I was having all of these questions. Somebody with Parkinson's is not going to be able to easily find a resource online and have the confidence to say, oh, I know how to start this or do this. So I wanted my project to kind of fill that gap. And so I created a manual and it's called, I have it right here. It's called Building a Bridge Between Parkinson's and Yoga, a guide for patients, caregivers, yoga instructors, and healthcare professionals. And essentially, I just wanted this to be a comprehensive, user-friendly, practical manual for people with Parkinson's, but also their support team on the how you can implement a yoga practice safely at home. And so each chapter or section includes different areas like balance, strength, mobility. There's seated options for everything, but it gives them ways that they can modify their practice. And then each chapter includes a 60-minute online yoga class with me, a 20-minute online yoga class with me, and then also a meditation.
I absolutely love it. I can't wait to get my hands on it. So you will definitely post links to how folks can access all of this. So you talked about you happen to be a yoga instructor already. You found this need. So what was the connection between your yoga instruction and Parkinson's?
Yeah, there's a personal and a professional connection to Parkinson's. My Aunt Carrie and my Uncle Jack both have Parkinson's, and they taught me so much about not only what occupational therapy can do, but just what resilience means with a progressive disease like Parkinson's. And it was really beautiful to see how engaging in occupations for them, and it wasn't yoga for them, but how fulfilling and how much it helped them progress towards whatever goals that they were striving for. And so I knew I was really interested in learning more about Parkinson's. And so when I was at Iowa State University, I joined the Neurophysiology Lab, run by Dr. Elizabeth Stegemuller. And I conducted research through the lab, but one unique part of this research lab was there were outreach groups as well. And so I volunteered for 4 hours every week at Iowa State, and it was boxing, yoga, singing, and dancing for people with Parkinson's. And that opened my eyes so much to what occupation really can mean and what community can mean for people with Parkinson's. So I saw the connection between yoga and Parkinson's, but also with the dancing, singing, and boxing, it was so much fun to be a part of it. And I knew that it was reciprocal because I would thoroughly enjoy these programs that we had. And also while I was there, we started a caregiver support group. So while the participants are doing their dancing group or the singing group, the caregivers were welcome to stay, and there was a separate caregiver support group for them, which also opened my eyes again to just, I think, the importance of social support for caregivers, and sharing resources. And I think when it comes to like a disease, the focus, of course, goes to the patient, but such a bigger impact to the support network. And so I think my experiences there really fueled my passion for wanting to work with people with Parkinson's. And I continued volunteering with people with Parkinson's at Boston University too. But that was kind of the origin.
Melissa, thank you for sharing about your family and, why this is so close to your heart. I love that you also, through your research work, went out there and began to network with folks and then led you to, this volunteer opportunity and again, bridging all of your passions, right? I couldn't help but hear OT there, yoga was in there, and also your passion for working with this population. Connection.
Yeah, I totally agree. It feels that way.
What I hear here is also just following your passions, right? Following what means something to you, following just your intuition about, what the next steps might be. And those steps eventually will connect and bring about these types of results.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I would say there was a little bit of trial and error. There were, of course, other things that I volunteered in. That was great experience for me to learn about, but I definitely felt this pull towards working with people with Parkinson's and teaching yoga. And so I'm really happy that I pursued that.
Amazing. So, okay. So now you've decided, okay, this is the group that I want to work with. This is my question, right? You've probably identified your research question at that point. How were you then able to find sites to conduct your research?
So my process was quite untraditional, actually, when it comes to capstone, because most students will partner with their level 2 fieldwork rotation and work with their supervisor at whatever site they were at. But I knew pretty early on the idea that I had of combining yoga for Parkinson's and making this manual. and neither of my fieldwork rotations included this population. So I knew it was going to have to be a little bit different. And so I started thinking about where could I even host yoga classes for people with Parkinson's to get the ball rolling on this idea. And I'm originally from Lake Forest, California, which is right next to Laguna Woods Village, which is uh an older adult residential community. So it's for older adults 55 and up, and it essentially has Laguna Woods Village has everything they could possibly need. There's so many like recreational activities. There's the hospital there, the grocery store. It's really, really great for older adults that live there because they have everything they need. There's no reason to leave Laguna Woods Village. And so I knew that I had this older adult population right by my hometown, and I figured there must be a Parkinson's community there. And so I reached out to the recreation coordinator at Laguna Woods Village, and he also wasn't really sure what the demand would be like or how many people lived there that had Parkinson's. So it kind of was like a shot in the dark. I had like a plan B, like, oh, if we can't get a group of people with PD, then maybe I'll just generalize it to movement disorders. And then if I don't do that, then maybe I'll just generalize it to older adults and make it more fall prevention. So I did kind of have some plan Bs, but once we started the recruitment, it took days. The demand was very, very high. I think I ended up having over 70 residents on the wait list for the class by the end. So the demand was definitely there, and I'm so thankful that even though Laguna Woods Village as a site was not really sure what that entailed, as far as being a site for a doctoral student in OT. I'm so happy that they were open-minded to hosting me, and it ended up working out really well.
I congratulate you on your initiative, your self-determination, and just seeing where you may be needed, reaching out to those folks, right? Initiating that conversation and making it happen.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the initiating part because since I didn't have really direct supervisor or a traditional site, I was going in weekly to teach the Parkinson's adapted yoga classes. And I could talk about this later too, but the in-person Parkinson's group at Laguna Woods Village also served as like an advisory board for this resource. So at the beginning, I would kind of teach the classes and observe, like, would this be safe to do at home? And are my cues appropriate? Is it getting to what I want them to feel and everything? But as I started creating the resource, I was getting feedback from them every week, which was amazing. But it really was up to me on my own time to make sure that I'm managing my time and responsibilities and I'm staying on track. There wasn't anybody like double checking my work or being like, oh, or you have this deadline coming up, or do you have this, and this done? It really was up to me to manage that. And thankfully, I had the skills to do so, but the taking initiative part was big in helping me feel like I could do this all the way through.
Yes. Yeah. Were you, and you saying that, were there any specific resources that you felt you were able to lean on during this time? Any specific individuals or groups that you think may have really supported you during this time?
Yes. So definitely my academic mentor at Boston University. I met with her frequently, and she helped me kind of narrow down exactly what I want this project to be, because it's easy as a student for your idea to grow and grow. And so she helped like keep my project realistic in the 16-week time frame. And then I also went back to Dr. Elizabeth Stegemuller, my mentor, you could say, at Iowa State. And I got feedback from like some of her participants with Parkinson's, and I am just so happy that I did reach out to her again and kind of utilize that connection, because not only is she a Parkinson's expert, but she had so many helpful tips for guiding me on what the project can look like as far as teaching the weekly classes at Laguna Woods, but also a lot of really good feedback on what like the physical manuals should look like, and how to keep it simple, but also include all the information, which was a balance.
Well, I love that you have this sort of like tangible manual at the end of it all. But I also love that there's yoga, which is a passion of yours, but then there's also occupational therapy, which is what this capstone project is all about, right? And again, you being able to bridge the two. And you and I have spoken about yoga and how so many of the principles really align so much with occupational therapy. From what you've shared about your experience during your capstone, it sounds like you were doing more than just yoga. You were also using your OT lens in other ways, like you mentioned, providing sort of support for caregivers, right? You were seeing the big picture. And I wondered if you could maybe highlight some specific occupational therapy sort of skills that really came into play for you during this time.
I'll list some of the skills, and then I do have a story that I'd love to share. But I would say some of the occupational therapy skills that were included in this program were cognitive strategies, so mindfulness, positive affirmations, visualization, especially like during times when symptoms may be worsening, because rumination for people with Parkinson's often worsens their symptoms in the moment, ruminating on, oh, let's use a tremor, for example. So if their tremor starts and they're only thinking about, oh no, I'm having this tremor, and their thoughts really do control the physical. And so the cognitive strategies that I talked about were practiced during our yoga practice, but really encouraged to do throughout their day and throughout all of their daily operations. We emphasized body awareness, environmental awareness, breath work and regulation, emotional resilience, dual tasking, cognitive flexibility. And the one story that I wanted to mention was in the in-person classes, the caregivers were encouraged to come, and at the end of class, we'd have our discussion where I'd get feedback. And one of the participants one week was explaining how mornings can be really difficult for people with Parkinson's, because they're just sitting there waiting for their medication to kick in, and they can't really do a yoga practice because physically they're not feeling ready or motivated to do that. And it was kind of a consensus among the participants that, you could wake up and do a couple minutes of breathing in the morning, and that can be yoga. Or later on, like if you're cooking, like what cognitive strategies can you introduce in those daily occupations? This isn't the word that they were using, but yeah, brain, it was going off. And so a lot of self-management was placed into this program, and it was so fulfilling to see the consensus in the group discussion be that we can implement this OT/yoga, all these strategies throughout our day. It doesn't have to be, I practice yoga for this 30 minutes and then I'm done. It's integrated into their daily life. And that was like so fulfilling for me to hear as a student, because that's exactly what I was aiming towards.
Oh, congratulations. That is accessible yoga to me. That is pure yoga to me, right? It's practice, it's this lifestyle, and wow, to me, you must have imparted this to them, right? For them to sort of come out of these sessions thinking, what about this, right? And kind of really having that flexibility in the way that they're approaching their day.
Yes, exactly.
Ah, that's wonderful. And such a great reminder, right? Different conditions require different schedules, and it's these adaptations that really allow for folks to re-engage again in their meaningful occupation.
Yes, exactly. It also felt good as a student because that was obviously a goal of mine, was for them to realize this. But I think you never know how you're doing until you see it or you get that feedback. And so it also kind of instilled a lot of confidence in me that, oh, I'm doing this the way that I expected it to, and they're receiving kind of exactly that message of how can we use these strategies or principles to live more meaningful lives.
Love being an OT. We're preaching to the choir, right? Okay, so I'm going through my typical questions here. I'm looking through them because I know we're kind of going through them atypically too. We've talked a little bit about what inspired you to this work. We've talked about, kind of how you got to where you are now and your path a little bit, right? Can you talk about some highs or lows of your project?
Yeah, definitely. I would say the highs were the weekly in-person adapted yoga classes. So I did have kind of two populations for this project. I had the in-person Laguna Woods people with Parkinson's meeting every week. And then I also had a population of virtual only Parkinson participants, so that they could really give me feedback on what just the manual is like, which was really obviously important because the end result is just the manual. So the in-person people were getting my instruction, we were having discussions, so they were getting more than just the manual. And so it was great having these two populations, but I will say the in-person classes just provided so much fulfillment for me, for the participants and their caregivers. All of them attested to how much they looked forward to coming to class every week, and the social connections that they built. I would see like newly diagnosed participants asking questions after class to some of the other people that have had Parkinson's for over 10 years. I saw friendships formed, and I think that was the best high that I could have from that project, because seeing those meaningful connections and seeing how a yoga program like this can influence their life was really like special to me to witness firsthand. So that would definitely be my high. And I would say a low is I did it, or maybe it's just not something I considered before, but I definitely noticed that people tend to not feel confident in beginning a yoga practice. So if it's somebody that has never done yoga before, I think people feel like they need to be qualified for this way to start a yoga practice, or they have to have this, and this to begin. And I think seeing how much self-efficacy can impact starting a yoga practice really opened my eyes, and also helped me realize the importance of my project too, to help people realize it really is as simple as just sitting down and breathing, or just moving in a way that feels good to you and your body. It doesn't have to be this extravagant yoga practice. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people do think that way, and they think it's really daunting to start.
Yes, I completely agree. I think it's having to, in my setting, I've actually stopped calling it yoga. I've started calling it more movement, mindfulness, right? Move your body, stretch and relax. Folks are feeling more skilled to be able to move your body or stretch and relax without having to label it something, right?
Yeah.
So, at least from my population, that's sort of been the challenge. So, would you be able? I was just couldn't help but I was taking notes here, and did you go through all of the highs and lows that you wanted to mention?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I was wondering if you could uh, share with us a little bit about, you know, it's the classes, the virtual classes or the in-person classes. When I think about yoga and a specific population, I think about adapting yoga. Can you give us examples on some ways that you've had to adapt your practice based on varying levels of yoga expertise?
Yes. So, you mean like how it's adapted for people with Parkinson's?
Yes.
The best thing about yoga, the training that I did, the philosophy was yoga is for everybody and every body, which I still love, like years and years later as a yoga teacher. And so I knew that there were some considerations with this population. Balance is a big consideration. And I also had the in-person class with me so I could monitor my 14 participants, but I still had to consider I'm recommending all of this to do at home. So how would this look if they were doing it by themselves? And so a lot of it comes to encouraging that self-reflection and encouraging participants to know when to pull back and when to push themselves. And some of the adaptations were uh most of the class was in a chair, seated, with options to stand for balancing postures, but they could still be done in the chair. And there was also options to get on the floor, but not all participants wanted to get on the floor. So then I had to kind of get creative with that. And I found some really good ways that you can adapt, like a sphinx pose. If you're down on your tummy on the floor, how could you do that in a chair? And so I learned that you can have like another chair or surface in front of you, and work on the same strengthening of the same muscles, or mobility, just it looks a little bit different. And so I think as a teacher, the adaptation part, thinking of adaptations came easy, but the hard part was encouraging participants to choose the right adaptation for them, because that is what a yoga practice is all about, is having the autonomy to choose, even if I did this yesterday, today in this moment, it's not feeling right, or I'm feeling pain here. And those are skills that go to every aspect of their life. It's not just yoga. So I would say it was really fun to kind of figure this out, but that was also kind of a challenge for me as a yoga teacher.
Well, thank you for sharing, giving us a glimpse, right? Because I think I imagine a class or a group of individuals, again, at varying level. But I love that you've described how you've used chairs and just other ways. And if it doesn't work for someone, then it doesn't work for that person, right? So that's how adaptable your practice was.
Yes. And we also used like traditional yoga props. So we had like blocks, blanket, bolsters. I encouraged like doubling up mats for all my participants,
Yeah.
especially for the ones who were getting on the floor, just to support their joints, even what I need. Um, um, yoga straps, things like that. But I would say the chair was the biggest decision that we had throughout the practice.
Great. Anything else that you'd like to mention about, a typical session that you may have had or a typical group or a typical encounter?
I think one thing that is I've already mentioned is the social benefit of having this in-person class. And so this manual, it includes online classes, which is great. That's a wonderful first step. But one reason why the audience includes yoga instructors is because I want yoga instructors to feel confident in going out in the community and teaching Parkinson's specific yoga classes or even just older adult yoga classes, but like having the knowledge from this manual to be able to feel confident making those adaptations and understanding the population better, because I really do think that in-person benefits outweigh everything else. Uh, the social benefit was huge, but also getting their caregivers involved and making a team effort help people with Parkinson's so much because they feel like they're not alone. It does take courage to manage this disease. And so I think that's something I really wanted to emphasize throughout the manual was this is for people with Parkinson's, but it's for their whole support team too.
It's amazing. Is this program, does it continue to exist after your project?
Yes. So I have this manual that I've been sharing with as many people as possible since I put the work into it. I want as many people with Parkinson's to benefit from it. But what's great is even without the manual, all of these online yoga classes I've been alluding to are all on YouTube. So they're never going to expire. They're never going to go away. Anybody can access them. They're completely public. And it also means that they can take them multiple times if they'd like. So that was one piece of this project that I was really proud of is this can be, I think there's like 16 videos total, and this can be something that they practice over years if they want. Unless they have the knowledge to go off of the videos and do it on their own, then that would be even more amazing. But yes, so there's full access to it to everyone, and I'll never take them down. So that's really great.
Oh, well, again, what an amazing project and what an amazing resource you created for all of us, folks with PD, folks who work with PD. So I'm super proud of you and what you've created.
Thank you. Yes, I am proud of it as well. Like you mentioned earlier, having the tangible really helped put all my work in one place, and I'm really proud of the final product as well. It wasn't just me, it was so many people helping me create this. So to thank them as well because it was a team effort for sure.
Well, is there I don't know if this would be an appropriate question or even to ask it in this way, but is there any money matters or money related things that you would like to share with our audience concerning your project?
Yeah, I think so for my capstone, there wasn't any compensation involved, but I think the fact that the demand was as high as it was, um, really shows how big the opportunity can be for yoga instructors or hosting these specialized classes. So I would just really emphasize that. I think this can be like an untapped industry that could help the Parkinson's population so much, or even other population. But I think yoga teachers can really make a big impact in their community and also make good money because they're specialized classes. So that requires specialized knowledge of the population, need, what those adaptations can look like. So yeah, not like it's kind of a vague answer. I wish I knew a little bit more, but
It sounds like you did market research for us and you've identified that there's a big giant gaping hole
yeah,
that needs to be filled.
exactly. And I think OTs too have a role in filling the same gap too when it comes to just patient education, introducing new occupations, or even just as an intervention strategy. If it's a one-time thing, just to plant a seed for a patient, I hope that an OT can read this manual and feel confident in knowing what a yoga practice for someone with Parkinson's looks like.
Yeah. You talked about your yoga sort of training and coming into the OT world with that knowledge. Do you have any advice for other OT practitioners or future OT practitioners who are thinking of getting their yoga teacher training certifications and, perhaps special tracks they should get into?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about how I started and then maybe mention any advice I might have. But I was really lucky when I was first interested in teaching yoga. I was at Iowa State and they had an amazing program for students that helped pay for their yoga certification, which was great. So I did my first few certifications through a company called Yoga Fit, which is a really it's kind of a unique yoga teacher training company because they do it in levels. So it's like level 1, 2, 3, 4. It goes up to like level 6. And once you pass that level, then you have your 200-hour yoga teacher training. And so I loved that as a student because it's kind of like a workshop, like a weekend workshop to get one level done. So as far as managing time, I think it would be a lot easier to do it with a work schedule. For me, it was a job. For me, it was a school schedule. But also if you're a little bit tight on money, you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to get that 200-hour training to have it all done right away. It's workshop by workshop. And so I ended up getting my level 1 and level 2 through Yoga Fit. And then I also got a seniors certification, so more of a specialized certification. And Iowa State paid for that, which was amazing. It was a really, really great professional development program that they had there at their recreation center. And I didn't end up finishing my 200-hour through Yoga Fit. I actually ended up later on going through a studio and doing a 200-hour, which was also a great experience, especially to see the differences. And so I think my advice would be to look at all the different ways that you can get certified and just try and find what resonates the most with you, because I know like some studios might not be tailoring to multiple different populations, especially like Parkinson's. They might not have a lot of experience of teaching people with different diseases or things like that. And so I would just look around and see kind of what yoga studios are around you and what opportunities there are, and maybe look into Yoga Fit if you're interested.
Such great advice. Thank you for that. Super specific ones too, that I'm sure folks can, we could also include some of this information or the links to some of the information that you mentioned so folks can access them. But amazing advice. Can you think of any common myths or misconceptions about work with yoga and Parkinson's and
Yes, I think I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I think a common myth is that these techniques or strategies have to be complicated. I've learned through this project specifically that usually the simpler, the better. And I think that applies to OT, yoga. It applies to so many different areas of people's lives. But I think as it's just human nature to want, when we start something, we want to go all out and know everything there is to know about it. But it really does come down to the very simple, basic principles of yoga or of OT. And those skills that you practice over and over again are what really make progress and what make it meaningful for you. It makes it your own practice that you can, use throughout your daily life. And so I think it's just a good reminder. It doesn't need to be complicated. Keep it simple.
great reminder. Such a great reminder. Thank you so much, Nikki. You've just given us a wealth of information. I'm sure inspired a ton of OTD students out there who are, really wrapping their heads around their capstone projects and thinking about how they can roll it out. You've just given us your story. You've just, you've just shared with us how you did it. And I am so impressed by what you've been able to create during this time. And I'm just so looking forward to having you do your thing. You're just going to be such an asset wherever you end up.
Thank you. And thank you so much for giving me this platform to help share this resource that I've created, because I really do want as many people as possible to use this resource and benefit from it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share all about it.
You're welcome. And thank you for creating this resource, for creating this way of being able to offer our service. You'll share links with our listeners.
Yes, I'll share links to the manual and also to the YouTube with all the classes. And feel free, whoever has access to it, to also share with their friends and communities. I want to get this out to as many people as possible. So I will definitely share all that with you.
Thank you so much. Now, if any of our listeners were interested in staying in touch or had any questions for you, would it be okay if they reached out?
Absolutely. Yep. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, obviously on YouTube. But they can also feel free to email me if they have specific questions.
Wonderful. So we'll list all of those ways to reach out to you and also all of the resources that you've created on our show notes. And thank you again so much, Nikki, for sharing with us. Super proud of you. And I'm so excited to see, what's next for you.
Been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Patricia.
And that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Uncommon OT series. Connect with me at www.transitionsot.com. And don't forget to sign up to be part of the Transitions OT community. By doing so, you'll receive my latest compiled list of uncommon OT practice settings, the latest news on mentoring offerings, uncommon OT live events, non-traditional OT resources, and more. You may also follow me on my social media pages on Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you love this episode, head on over to Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, and Google Podcasts to follow, rate, and leave a review. I also ask you to consider pledging your support to my Passion Podcast project by being a patron on Patreon. It is very much appreciated. Sending big OT love. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.